Ciao everybody. In this episode of The Naturalist, in Italy, we're going to walk along the lake shore of Lake Como and in the vicinity of a town called Acquaseria and take a look at the lake shore and the town itself a little bit. Afterward, we'll take a hike up the mountainside behind the lake, overlooking the lake, to a town called San Martino, where some of my Italian ancestors lived and were buried. So let's go. Hey everybody, I'm along the lake shore of Lake Como in northern Italy. I'm near the town of Acquaseria, and this is the homeland of my Italian ancestors. So what I'm gonna do with you today is to take you through some of the sights and sounds along Lake Como, which is the deepest, one of the third largest lake and the deepest lake in Italy. So let's see it. So here I'm standing near a little dock for the town, where people will dock their little lake boats. And I'm going to take a walk along the shore. You can walk entirely along the shore, either right along it, or periodically we'll have to rise up and take little walks around some of the buildings. But you can more or less pace the entire lake and just take a look at what's going on here. Okay, this is a little spot I've noticed we'll walk to soon that's designated for public fishing. You see there are kids swimming and playing here. Okay, it's shallow. The lake is very clear. It's pretty cold. It's very deep. This is the deepest lake in Italy. I'd have to check this, but I think it gets as deep as 800 feet or more. And it's beautiful. It's been hazy. It's kind of overcast. It's coming in and out of sun, which is kind of good because it's warm and humid. If it was very sunny today, it'd be pretty hot. So let's just take a little walk and see what we see. These are some common trees, by the way, planted around all throughout Italy. This is London plane tree. Okay, we saw these when I was in France, in Paris, and in Amsterdam. So this is a tree very commonly planted in these European cities. I've noticed lots of North American trees here as well. I'll try to point those out when I see them. This is a little alleyway. A lot of the small streets would be paved with stone. Blocks of stone placed one by one. Just seemingly painstaking to do that, but they're all over Italy like that. And here's a hedge, but of course one of my favorites, it's cultivated olive. Okay, this is grown ornamentally all throughout the country. It grows wild. This area, the olive oil produced in this area is known for its high quality, but these are just ready to flower. So interestingly, I have olives at home myself in pots, and they're at the same stage right now. So that's just kind of interesting. Okay, so I'm going to proceed here a little bit. This is a little cottage over to the right where we stayed the last time I was here 5 years ago. There's some modern houses and cottages along the lake here. This is the one. All right, but a lot of the town is very historic. My family started from mountainside towns, a mountainside town called Carcente, and we will visit that later. I'm going to proceed down to the lake shore now. So this is a public lake shore, and there was a sign over here where this area is designated for fishing. And these little sort of like personal docks, you can sort of place out toward the water and sit on them while you fish. Okay, so there's a little private personal docks. And here's the sign. All right. Nice stone wall. The rocks in this area are of volcanic origin, but also ancient seabed origin. So there's a lot of granite, and there's also limestone. This lake shore is not sandy at all. It's rocky. It's basically ground stone, grounded river stone, lake stones. There's brick and tile mixed in there as well. There's probably glass. It's been rounded off. But let's just pause and take a look. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening right now. I mentioned this is a fishing location. This lake is filled with fish. Major fish you can find in here include European walleye, pike, perch, whitefish of all sorts, including shad and things like that. And there is a fishery on this lake. And so last night at a restaurant just down the shore here, I got a plate of fried lake fish that came right out of this lake. So it's very clean. This water is very clear. None of the algal blooms, as far as I can see, that we deal with in places like Ohio, maybe in near parts of the lake locally, but there I just saw a fish rise out there. So here's an example where you periodically have to rise up little stairs and take a walk around these buildings to continue your journey. Okay. So this is an interesting thing. Along Lake Como, you can have things like palm trees. Okay, palms will survive right next to cedars and next to olive trees, and also next to things that we grow back in Ohio, for example, like box elders and plane trees and things that need a winter. So it does get cool. It can snow here, but by the lake, it probably stays a little warmer because of the lake during the winter, and allows these palm trees to survive the winter. There's cherry trees, sweet cherry trees, olives, all kinds of things that we grow at home. This is English ivy, just mixed right in with palm trees and more tropical kinds of plants. So this is just a little walk. We'll walk past a restaurant here. Acquaseria is a pretty small town. There aren't too many restaurants, just a few. Peaceful birds, except the highway, except the roads. I'll talk to you about that in a bit. But let's just, I'll pass through this restaurant area here quickly. Yeah. YouTube. Okay, back to the lakeshore. Just a little example of these little alleys. In Italy, you can drive on anything, any surface until you can't. And while you do it, just don't hit anybody. Other than that, it seems to be wide open. This is just a little dock and parking area. And so we'll see a little bit of the deeper water here. Very clear. I can see from my vantage point, probably, at least 10, 15 feet out there to the bottom. Okay, and so we're relatively near the top end of Lake Como. And I'll visit there later this evening. And the bottom of the lake, which is far in the distance from where we are, is the city of Como itself. Okay, so those two things go together. But the lake is basically surrounded by these lakeside towns, and then towns that were built up on the hillsides, up on the mountainsides. And initially, all the villages and towns were built on the mountainsides to get up away from the mosquitoes that were abundant at the lakeshore. And it wasn't until, they came up with techniques to fend off mosquitoes and mosquito-borne diseases did villages start to come down to the lakeside. So the villages up on the mountainsides are older generally than the lakeside villages. Okay. All right, and the mountains, in the distance, which it's a hazy day, kind of foggy, are parts of what we call the Italian Alps, and they reach heights of 7,000 and 8,000 feet in this particular vicinity. Okay, now if you go in the other direction behind me, toward the sun, toward the west, which we'll visit on a hike, we're not far from Switzerland. We're probably 10 or 15 miles as the crow flies, or as the magpie, as we see here, flies to Switzerland. Okay, I think that's probably enough for now. You know me, I'm always on a quest to find large trees. And this is one of the bigger trees I've found so far. I'm not entirely sure what species this is, but it's a big one. It's across a fence from me. I can't get close to it, but it has foliage like a larch tree to me. So I think it could be a European larch tree, and it is at least 4.5 or 5 feet in diameter at least. It's huge. It's a beautiful tree. I can't get close to it, unfortunately. I'll try to identify that later. Walk along here a little bit more. Oh, here's another species you see a lot in Italy, planted ornamentally from North America, which is right over there. That's southern magnolia. See if I can peek in through this gate. I don't think I can enter. No, but yeah, southern magnolias are planted all over the place. And these are ferns and cycads. Beautiful little garden in here. Just poking around a back little alley at the moment. Stone walls. This happens to be a brick walk, which is uncommon. It's mostly stone. And as you get to a smaller and smaller street or walk, the stones get smaller and smaller. And so just to think about the work it would have taken to build those would be amazing. Here's some modern building mixed in. This is a beautiful stone building that looks like it could actually be new, or it was really recently pointed. This is all new masonry around the stone. Okay, here's a nice walk. A little broader view of the lake. There's some water birds out there. I believe they're grebes or something like grebes. Again, as usual, I'll have to ID them later. This is a new little point here I can see. Oh, here's a spot where there's a little bit, you can see the current that exists in the lake. Okay, the currents that are generated by the winds. So we are in a deep valley. Yeah, you can see the waves picking up here. Okay, there's I think it's a grebe. So let's go look at that shore over there. This is all brand new right here. This walk I'm on at the moment. Yeah. A lot rougher here. Looks like a little put in right there. Okay, here's where one of the mountain streams that originate way up on the mountainside, enter the lake. Cold, clear, clean water right from the mountains up there. So it joins the lake. Okay, now in the distance is a place where the lake splits into two halves. One arm heading more toward the east or south, and one a little bit more to the southwest. The southwestern arm goes to Como, and at that point is a famous village called Bellagio, and that is the source of the name for the Bellagio in Las Vegas. People might recognize. And across the lake from Bellagio is a village called Menagio, another very beautiful village that we will visit on this trip. There goes a mallard, the universal ducks. Look at these waves coming in. This is all from wind. My relatives tell me at the north end of the lake that the wind and the waves are strong enough to do things like kite surfing and windsurfing, of course. That's pretty impressive. Oh, someone's going to go in the water over there. I don't see many people in the water. I think it's quite cold. So I'm going to try to go down the shore a little bit more, but I'm going to have to jump this stream. So wish me luck. Well, I wimped out and I decided to cross the bridge. This is just another view of that mountain stream before it enters the lake. And it's nearby a tree that we should recognize from back home. This is black locust. Black locust grows all over Italy, all over Europe, as more or less an invasive species. So we get mad about invasive species back in the US that come from Europe or Asia, but we send them in the other direction too. This may be next to impossible to see on camera, but up the mountainside are two villages you can see. They look kind of close from here, but they're far walks, and it's steep. First is San Martino, and it has probably maybe 100 people living in it, 150. And then the other one, a little higher, is called Carcente. And that's the one where my great-grandfather came from, who immigrated to the US right around 1900. Okay, so we visited Carcente, or we will visit Carcente, and San Martino. But it's really interesting to see the source of, part of my genes right here in Italy. And that San Martino has a cemetery that has a number of Cipollinis, as they would be called, in it, buried there. Okay, so I just realized at this little spot I could see those villages up there. Okay, I'm going to walk down the shore a little bit farther. Oh yeah, now here you can see this is a stretch of the lake ahead of us. It's basically too steep to build on, so there really isn't much in the way of villages or towns. And in fact, to get to Acquaseria, the little town where we are now, you have to go around part of the lake and get away from the lakeshore temporarily to till you get back toward Menaggio. I think this might be the end of the road for us, although I might be able to continue on this little walk right here. We shall see. Can I get through this? No, it's locked. Okay, so this is going to be the end of the road for me. Our little walk along Lake Como. It's pretty peaceful out there in general. It isn't heavily used in terms of boat traffic and things like that. It's a giant lake. Okay, but this is a neat spot where the winds pick up. Okay, arrivederci for now. Hey, Gatto, car's coming. Come here. Oh. Now I've risen up from the lake shore and I'm walking through the main street through town. And one thing you will notice is how fast people go when they can. And we'll just take a look at some of the shops and things as we go. Lots of wine shops, some hairdressers. Most historical structures are stone. This is a asphalt paved street, obviously, but lots of stone. Some of these more modern buildings are of different construction. People ride motorcycles and scooters a great deal in Italy. Small cars, very small cars generally. Many of the cars are electric or natural gas. So there's very little air pollution caused by these cars. The air quality is very good, even in the big cities, I've noticed. There's an older building in some disrepair, just to give you an idea. Small little roadside bars and cafes. You can get cappuccino and espresso and wine. Get a little bit of everything just about everywhere. This is a spot over here for pizza and other standard menu items, pastas, some meat, things like that. Here's a salami and cheese store. Butcher shop, it's closed for the day. Down this alley is a fruit, vegetable store. Here's another one. You squeeze your car in to park wherever you can. There is some public parking over here. There's a little public sports, a little sports center up here that has a AstroTurf soccer field, a very small basketball court with one hoop. I haven't seen anybody playing on it yet, and a little tennis court as well. So a little public park, church. My current relatives live in the house just beyond the church, and I'll visit that tomorrow and get some pictures of that. I have second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins here in this village. This is the town, basically the municipal building. And here comes a bus. I don't even know how you drive a bus on some of these streets. Some of these villages are very, very busy and with very narrow streets. I couldn't even imagine driving a bus like that through some of these streets. There's a salon. So this is small town lake village living. Later this evening, we'll go to a village at the north end, which is a little more touristy probably, and larger. And then of course, as you go south into places like Menaggio and where Bellagio is, those are the ritzier towns, larger and fancier, if you will. People probably know that George Clooney and his wife have a property on Lake Como. It's a popular place for celebrities to vacation. So we are almost to the little place we're staying this time. Here's a nice little overlook. This is not where we're staying. I just want to peek out here. Oh, the colors are really brilliant right now. Brilliant green, bluish green cast to everything. Here's a bio roof on the building in front of us. Okay, see palms. Here's a beautiful flower called passion flower, passion vine. Being worked over by Italian honeybees. And that, of course, is the main species of bee we use in the honeybee industry in the US as well. Here's an apple tree. Oh, excuse me, not apples. These are plums. Plums. That's what is, yeah, laden with plums. Okay, this is the building we're staying in. On a floor just below this one, this is our rental car right here. And that's our view from our little palazzo over there. Ciao, everyone. Well, this is The Naturalist with a really special episode coming to you from the shores of Lake Como in northern Italy. This is the homeland of my Italian ancestors. And so let's take a look around Acquaseria, Lake Como, and surrounding areas. And here's your intro panorama. Hello. I've started a hike up to the town of San Martino, above the lakeside town of Acquaseria. And so the goal is to reach a cemetery in San Martino where some of my Cipollini or Cipollini relatives are buried. Here's the view so far. Okay, so we're rising up into the higher part of Acquaseria, which is again a lakeside town. My current relatives live in a house just a little bit obscured by a tree over there. But this is just a little image of this small town, of the construction of houses with tile roofs in general, stone and masonry almost exclusively used in construction, and just a beautiful shot of the lake.
In this area, there can be a mixture of plants that grow and require very warm temperatures, tropical actually, as well as Mediterranean things that can tolerate quite cold temperatures and even snow. This little patch by this little parking spot is agave in the front and bananas in the back. So these things are getting along just fine here, despite the fact that it can snow here. So it's a really interesting spot for many different kinds of plants. In bloom the whole way across Italy right now is this plant, jasmine or star jasmine. This plant has an intoxicating scent. It's the original source of jasmonic acid, which is used in perfumes and is an important plant hormone. But it just coats walls and fences and buildings everywhere in this country. And so it is in full bloom right now across the entire country. Lots of these houses on the hike up to San Martino have little gardens and little hillside farms. Here's a little olive orchard and a very steep slope here. You can see it's terraced. A lot of the gardens and yards are terraced. This is actually a more manicured olive orchard that they actually are clearly harvesting from and so forth. Again, there's a lot of wild and untamed olive trees in the area, but this is one that is clearly being cared for. Let's walk a little further just to show you the opposite. Here's a little shrine. You see these just everywhere in the stone walls and things along the way. But here's some olive trees that are, well, they may be harvested from. They're much larger, really tree-sized olive trees that are not being maintained in a way to harvest, really. So as you walk these mountain paths, they're built of stone. There's hardly any dirt paths at all, because they would erode. But it's just incredible to think of the work it would take to construct these. These are chunks of stone, some places a lot smaller than what you're seeing here, placed vertically together. It boggles the mind to imagine the construction of all of these stone walkways. How long that would take, the labor that would take. First of all, to break up the stone and place it and fit it together. It's just, I can't even imagine it.
We finally reached the town of San Martino. That was a heck of a hike. We're at least 1,000 feet above the lake. That was a steep walk. It was great, but, and this is a neat little apiary. The Italian honeybees are just streaming out of those boxes you see ahead up there. Very colorful. And one thing they may be collecting is chestnut flowers, which I don't see any right in my vicinity. Back there I do, actually. But we'll see where they're visiting. Now we're going to head to a cemetery just nearby that has several of my presumed relatives who died in this area and were buried here. And so we're going to check that out in just a second. Okay, this is the So here I am in the hillside village of San Martino, about to visit a cemetery where some of my relatives are buried. And so let's check this out. This is a small town. It probably has a couple hundred residents at the moment. This is a cemetery that goes back. I think some of the earliest graves I was seeing is the early 1900s, it seems. But it's just amazing to look at some of these graves and how well appointed these things are. Just check this out. So there are lots of names I recognize, either my own relatives or relatives via marriage. Pratis, for example. There are a lot of Pratis in this this cemetery. And so we'll just walk along until we see some Cipollinis. Just check these out. I like this particular photo. Here's a fellow that they've memorialized, him posing with a deer in a butcher shop. It's quite apropos for my family. Pratis. Here's the first Cipollini I'm seeing. This is a gravestone of Maria Cipollini, born 1880, died 1958, who was apparently married to someone named Paolo Curti. Some of these relatives I know, some or know who they are, how they are connected, but not all. Just beautiful. Okay, so here are some relatives that I know are my relatives. So this is Giovanni Battista Cipollini. That is the brother of my great-grandfather. And that's Attilio Cipollini, I believe was his brother, I think. And Eugenio, who must have been a son. Okay, he was born in 41 and died in 1970. Okay, so these are some. Let's see, where else? Up this way. Here's another one. This is Martino Cipollini, born 1855, died in 1934. And apparently his wife, Maria Capelli, no, that's the wife of Emilio Cipollini, born 1894 and 1952, died 1952. I think there are a few others. There are lots of Pratis, who I know some of my relatives married. And that's the extent of the cemetery. There may be a couple more in there, but and just to give you a view of where this is perched, we're on a steep hillside that we climbed. And there's Lake Como out there in the distance. Snow-capped Italian Alps behind it. Okay, this is part of my homeland. Well, here's another Cipollini. This is Candido Cipollini. Born 1880, died 1938. And below that is Pietro Cipollini. He only lived to be 21, 1910 to 1931. And yet another Cipollini. This is Giovanni Cipollini. Died at the age of 58, I believe, born in 1862. And one more. I may find some others, but this is Luigi Cipollini. Born 1920, died 1956. Last stop in it's a nice raptor in the sky. I'm not sure what it is. But this is the view from San Martino over the famous church at San Martino, overlooking Lake Como. Ringing of the bells at noon on Sunday. We're at the one restaurant in San Martino, just again overlooking the lake. Here's an interesting little building with a roof built of slabs of stone, the same stone that the buildings are built with, but slabs. Chestnut trees flowering. And we can hear the church bells in all these little towns in the area going off at noon. In the eastern U.S., we often think about what chestnut-dominated forest used to be like, since none of us were around to see it. We're basically in a forested hillside here overlooking Lake Como, and these forests are essentially chestnut-dominated forests. So right directly in front of me, about 30 feet, is an Italian chestnut tree in very good health. Here's one fairly sizable. Whoops, almost fell. Fairly sizable in front of me here. I did notice that these trees are susceptible to chestnut blight. Many of them show disease or decline. They do, however, seem to get larger before they get killed by the blight. And so they resprout vigorously and to pretty large sizes, it seems, before they succumb. I actually don't know how long the blight has been in Italy. But here's some burrs you can see on the ground. And here's a pretty sizable tree over here. I'll just get my hand there, or myself there for scale. Okay, that's a pretty sizable chestnut. I don't think these trees would get as large as American chestnuts, but I have seen some larger than this, although that's a pretty big tree. Still in good health, but I have seen dieback. You can see underneath, it's all rooted up by wild boars or deer. I can see that they work these areas extensively, feeding on these nuts. And lizards are running everywhere. Here's one, see if I can get it on camera. Oh, there he ran away. But essentially this gives you a feel. This is also somewhat of a secondary forest. I can see that it's, you know, there's more disturbance-oriented trees in here like black locust, which again is a non-native species right in front of us there, came from North America. I see cherry trees, bird cherries. Here's large little leaf linden tree along the trail right here. Okay, that's a big one. We don't usually see them that big in the US, although we plant them all over the place as ornamentals. I gotta watch my footing, it's steep. Okay, that's a sizable little leaf linden. And again, out ahead of us are cherries. I see some citrus trees. Ailanthus grows here as an invasive species pretty commonly as well. There are ash trees also intermingled here. Probably the last thing I'll mention are walnuts. Okay, I've seen quite a few walnut trees on the walk today as well. So, making the descent back to Acquaseria from San Martino. And that will probably conclude my filming for now because my memory card is just about out of space. So, this is a particularly meaningful visit. And I hope you enjoy it. It's a little mix of nature and family and history, ancestry. So for now, arrivederci.